this is one of the biggest mysteries of Osiris and why he became so famous in the mysteries and everything else, and why he was kind of been revered. Now, it really begs the question, was he even a real being that just had, in terms of, I know his spirit body was real, but were his body parts real? Some of these entities, these beings, they live for tens of thousands of years. And he got into a battle with his brother, and his body was torn into pieces, like limb from limb. Arm here, arm there, leg off, this off. All those pieces, including his manhood, was taken off as well. And then all buried in various different places, random spots. And his wife was able to track down these body parts, which is amazing to me. I mean, what type of technology do you use to track down a body part? Maybe these body parts had tracking devices in them, or were made from materials that they had the capability of scanning for. I'm not sure. Maybe they just were that far advanced. But she found the body parts piece by piece, and she reassembled Osiris. Now, that's an amazing claim to make. And when I hear these types of claims in the ancient past, where some people would just brush it off as, oh, they're just making stuff up, or we don't know what they're trying to say, I think they know exactly what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that she found these body parts and put them back together. He was a functioning human being again. She even reattached his manhood. And it worked. And then they gave birth to Horus. So that's some great technology. But it's an amazing story. A lot of people try to say that these are just all allegories and stories and myths, but I truly believe that there's some truth to this information. Not all myths are just made up stuff. And a lot of the stuff that they keep telling us are myths to program us to thinking that it was all fake and made up are really the truth. And the life that we're living here now is really the myth. The ancient Egyptians were the first to write about Orion and place him into their mythologies. They associate the stars of Orion with Osiris, the sun god of rebirth and afterlife, and one of the most important gods of the ancient Egyptians. Orion was considered the abode of Osiris following his resurrection. In other words, they're saying after he passed, his spirit body went back to that star cluster. Isis dwelt on Sirius. In Egyptian mythology, Osiris was murdered and dismembered by his jealous brother, Seth, then briefly brought back to life by his sister and consort Isis. So his sister and his wife were really the same person, to father the god Horus. So what happened in ancient Egypt was they were doing a lot of mummification. And when you really analyze a lot of the ancient Egyptian text, so I'm going to show you some stuff tomorrow that's going to blow your mind, you begin to realize that the Egyptian mummification process was not so that they can just get on a solar boat in the next life and sail away. You begin to realize that these Atlantean Anunnaki people had promised them something. They promised them eternal life through cloning of their own DNA. This is what mummification is all about. It's all about cloning. They were promised, this is why they would bury themselves in tombs with all their riches. Now, anybody with any kind of common sense knows that these riches are not wrapped in a mummy wrap, so why would the riches go with me to the next realm? They're not going to make it. They're going to stay right in their tomb and collect dust. But they thought that they would be brought back to their tomb, which is why they hid the tombs. So if you go to Egypt and you go to the Valley of the Kings, the tombs were all hidden. They were, in other words, you didn't know where King so-and-so was going to be buried. Only a few people knew, and sometimes they would even kill the people who dug the tomb to keep it a secret, to keep the robbers away. So there would be a tomb that would be so elaborate, so immaculate, and it would be covered on the outside in dirt and stuff. You wouldn't even know that you were walking on top of a tomb. And the purpose for this is because they would be brought back to this secret location, and before they died, they would show the location of their hidden tomb before they died, so that they knew exactly where to come back to. So in their mind, they were going to be mummified to preserve the DNA of the body. This is why the organs and everything were taken out to prevent the body from rotting and so forth. Then their Anunnaki Atlantean, allegiances, they would come back and take some DNA out of them, clone their body back to a healthy state, and let them take their gold and their wealth and riches and everything with them, including their cats and so forth. This is what they were told. Now, of course, they were tricked, and the mummification process was definitely perfected. But the purpose of the mummification was because of the promise of eternal life through cloning. Not because they were going to go on this magical solar boat in another dimension and all this other kind of stuff. This is another representation from ancient Egypt of Osiris. And you can see with the 3 stars underneath his solar boat that he's representing the Orion star cluster. And this is why I believe that these beings hail from Orion They hail from Sirius, Aldebaran, and the Pleiades. Okay, there's a story behind it. There was actually a war in the Pleiades. When you look into a lot of these ancient tablets, I've now gone through over 1,000 ancient tablets, texts, cylinder scrolls, scriptures, you name it, books, and I've come to the realization that this story really starts in the Pleiades. I've been collecting artifacts now for about 8 years now. And a lot of the artifacts, I would say 70% of them have a representation of the Pleiadian star cluster on them. Now that's amazing. I mean, no matter what, if it's a statuette, it's got a representation on the statuette. If it's a plaque, it's got it on the plaque. No matter what I look at, it's incredible. And why are they representing the Pleiades? So I started really saying, I got to look into the Pleiadian star cluster. And I started finding some very, hard to find documents that talk about the Pleiadian star cluster. Now, it's mentioned in Iliad, the Adventures of Iliad. It's mentioned in the Bible. It's mentioned in many other places. So it's a well-known star system. But when you go into deeper texts, you start to discover that the Pleiadian star cluster was a place of advanced beings, advanced civilizations, which I still believe probably are some there still now. The seven stars themselves didn't just represent the only stars there. According to the ancient Egyptians, there were thousands of planets there that were inhabited by the many thousands or millions of stars that were, tens of thousands of stars, that were surrounding that Pleiadian star cluster. The seven sisters, as they call them, were just the brightest ones from our point of view, but there are many stars there. All of them have planets, and a lot of those planets are inhabited with advanced civilizations. Now, how did all this get to Earth? Well, there was a galactic war. And find out that there was a war in the Pleiadian star cluster. And the war was between the Lyrians and the Sirians. And it started off as really just, an interracial war, so to speak, and the rights to different planets. These beings own planets. I mean, it's really as close as you can get to understanding the power of these Atlanteans and how people own planets. People own solar systems and people own galaxies. And that's true to this current moment right now. To this current moment right now, who owns this planet? Amun-Ra also owns this planet, until we enter into the age of Aquarius in 2025 officially. And that's who owns this planet right now. Okay, people own planets. People that look like me and you own planets. This is real stuff.
By Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson.